And it looks like we have a new development here in the Turkey crisis. Zero Hedge has posted this. Looks like Bloomberg reported it earlier this morning. I did not see it though. But effectively, Turkey just raised the interest rate 300 basis points. And this is what I was saying, where they're going to have the Chinese advising, and they're not going to hyperinflate. They're just going to default. Now, effectively, it's done nothing to the lira. You know, they had a little bit of a bounce, but on Friday, but it's still pretty much stuck wherever it is. I can't see that chart over there. But again, there's going to be no liquidity. It's like it says here in the article, because there's a week-long holiday. And they're still down about, I think it's still 35% for the year. I have to check that, or somebody has to check that. But effectively, they just hiked 300 basis points, and did it by preventing them from borrowing at the 17.75% repo rate. Then they had to go to the overnight lending rate, which is at 19.25%. Still it's a 150 basis point hike within a week. And if they were to prevent them from borrowing at the overnight rate, they'd have to go to about 20.75%. So it's effectively 300 basis points that they could be raising it towards. So again, if I were Erdogan, the last thing I would do is hyperinflate. Raise the rates if I needed to, but ultimately, the currency's still down. It's still going to cause the debt defaults, the corporate debt, consumer debt, and probably the government debt too. And if I were him, at that much GDP, I'd just default on it. And it would really fuck over any of the people who I would consider, Erdogan's adversaries. And it gets him into the petro-yuan system. It gets him in a much better position financially. And he gets to be in a trading block that is much more beneficial for his country. So, just like I was saying, I highly doubt, because he has two options in this situation. His lira is never going to come back up 40%. Never. Not a chance in hell. So he has two choices. He can hyperinflate all his debt away, or he can default on it. And he has the Chinese to bail him out this time, without the IMF having to insist on their whatever conditions that they would try to impose, likely austerity, which, I'm sure their people wouldn't like. I'm sure their government wouldn't like either, amongst other things. But those IMF bailouts do not come with zero conditions. So, just another interesting update here in the emerging markets implosion. And I'm not quite sure why Erdogan doesn't want to raise interest rates, aside from the fact that it would, slow down his economy. But in this crisis, the only way I could see him playing it out is imploding it, or not imploding it, defaulting on it, letting the people who he considers his adversaries implode, and then get bailed out by the Chinese and do well for himself. I don't see why he would take any other course of action. But just another interesting turn of events here in the Turkey crisis.